we cover baseball some, but the truth of the matter is we see with the views that you guys just don't seem to consume that content as much as you do other things. So we do look for other options and alternatives to bring to you, during basketball and baseball season, because we know football doesn't have news, constantly. And today's one of those. It's applicable to football. We're going to discuss some other things beyond that as well. But it's applicable to football. But it's the NCAA in general, the NIL. I see several of you already in the chat. I think you guys are going to enjoy this. It's going to be a little bit free-flowing, and we're going to, just kind of discuss really a lot of different things. But President Trump being pulled into the limelight as it concerns college football is interesting, always interesting. And so, I remember the last time I think he was in the limelight where college football was probably COVID, Jay. Do you remember that?
Is this when when we were all trying to play again? Like all the schools were like abandoning their seasons, and
yes,
the SEC and the Big 12 were like, "Hey, we're just going to play."
Yes.
And then the Big 10 canceled their season, and then the Pac-10 did too. And then the Big 12 and SEC were full ahead, and everyone was pressing the Big 10 and the Pac-10, and everyone's the Big 10 and Pac-10 were just looked like complete effing idiots.
Yeah. So you remember Trump was wanting to gain some favor in the swing states, and obviously Big 10 country.
I say Big 10 football.
Yeah.
Remember he said that.
He goes. He started saying that during the election the first time. Yeah, he used it in two elections. He used it in the 2020 election and the 2024 election. But in the 2020 election, he was saying that he was kind of like goading the Big 10 commissioner, like telling him you got to play. And he was using the president's pulpit to basically be like, we can't have no college football this offseason. Frankly, you've got to play. They've got to play in Michigan. They've got to play in Indiana. They've got to play in Ohio. And so he was doing all of that. And it worked to some extent between Trump and other pressures that were being put on. Obviously, the Big 10 got something together that season. So I will give Trump some credit for that. I mean, no other president, I don't think, probably would have injected themselves in that. And who knows if the Big 10 would have lost a whole season or
not. Kevin Warren was the Big 10 commissioner, man, and was the biggest hypocrite on planet Earth. And I think it was maybe Doug Lamorice actually kind of hammered him on that question. I don't know who it was, but somebody was like, how do you feel? You say all these things about COVID and how dangerous it is. We need to protect our student athletes. And yet your son is playing at Mississippi State, playing football down there, and you haven't pulled him out of football. What's up with that?
Exactly.
And of course, he didn't have an answer for it.
He had no answer. It was just more, hypocrisy.
Yep.
And Kevin Warren was going along with the big corporate line. He was not willing to buck it, and it got him in trouble. And it got him really being one of the most derided, hated Big 10 commissioners probably ever, certainly of my lifetime. And he deserved it. He did not do a great job as Big 10 commissioner. Now, he did do some good things with the money and the contracts and all of that. But however, all of those noon games are also thanked to Kevin Warren. It was a great contract, but with that great contract, we play a lot of our big games at noon. So, that's Kevin Warren.
Michael, before we get into, because we really have a loaded episode, a very important episode, and probably, I would say arguably this is our most important episode to date. But before we get into all of, what we need to discuss, I was going to say that, college basketball is really hit its peak right now. We are in the prime months of college basketball. I know everyone looks to next week, the next week, not this Monday through Saturday, but the next Monday through Saturday, everyone's looking forward to the NCAA tournament. But I just want everyone to be aware of in regards to actual college basketball games, you're going to get the most college basketball games this upcoming week because you have all of the conference tournaments. So you're going to have like the Mountain West, like the West Coast Conference, like, the conferences with Gonzaga and Santa Clara, teams like that playing like late night basketball all through like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, if you want to watch college basketball, you literally have your choice starting, I would say, probably Monday night all the way until Saturday night. It is just all college basketball all the time. And it's a very exciting time. But, Michael, Ohio State has kind of found their way in basketball. They had, and in my opinion, it has nothing to do with Jake Diebler. Jake Diebler sucks, as we all know. But like I have said all year, they have a lot of talent on this team, and that talent has kind of figured out how to play in spite of him. And they have been able to navigate a bad Big Ten. I wouldn't say it's a bad Big Ten. It's an average Big Ten, average Big Ten, and win some games towards the end. They are going to make the NCAA tournament. It's a matter of if they're a 7, 8, 9, or 10 seed. That's where they're going to fall. I would say at the maximum 7, at the bottom tier 10.
I think it was my job to clarify, and I'll let that drop. We are discussing basketball, obviously, here for a moment. Then we're going to be getting into the Trump deal. I see the comments have gone, a lot of comments about the Trump, what they're trying to fix. So we are going to that, but I didn't mention that we are starting with some Ohio State basketball for just a moment because they might make the tournament, as Jay's explaining to us.
No, that's not mine. They will. I mean, they could lose. So they just blew out Indiana yesterday. They blew out Penn State. Penn State's god awful. It doesn't matter. But they did blow out Indiana yesterday. They are playing Iowa in the first round on Thursday. If they lose that game, I think they could, I think they will get in as a 10 or 11 seed. If they win that game, they then play Michigan on Friday, which I expect them to lose. But I think they'll push Michigan. So that would put them in as that 8-9 range. Maybe they get into the 7, and we'll see from there. But again, you look at this team, Michael, they're extremely talented. They start 4 composite top 50 players on their starting 5. Not many teams in college basketball are doing that. So they have the talent to actually go far in the tournament. They just don't have any coaching. The players have kind of started to figure it out some. So I just wanted to provide an update on Ohio State basketball. We are going to be keeping Jake Diebler another season, sad to say. I don't know if they get a really good draw. I mean, I could see them backing their way into a Sweet 16. That's not a joke. But even then, it's like, I don't know if that's really long-term the best thing for this program because Jake Diebler, I just don't see him improving as a coach. I think the talent is always going to be solid. And like I said a couple weeks ago, Ohio State basketball has the highest ceiling of any team in this conference. Like if we were able to put it together, I feel like we would be the next team to win a national championship for the Big Ten because, I look at Michigan and we addressed them a few weeks ago. I do not see them as a team to win a national championship for the Big Ten. I think they are a Final Four team, but I think that is their ceiling. They're not a national championship winning team. So be that as it may, that's the update with Ohio State basketball. Anyone have any questions, you can super chat. We'll make sure to get to it. But Michael, we need to, I think we need to start with President Trump and the NCAA. Let's start there, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
So as we all know, actually, I didn't really know until the day of, but President Trump held like a meeting at the White House with like a who's who of college and NCAA and really professional sports figureheads, right? Like they had like Adam Silver in there. I believe they had the New York Yankees president or something along those lines. They had Nick Saban. They had Urban Meyer. They had a lot of, they had all of the conference commissioners were in there. Mm-hmm. And then like some really big, powerful sports figureheads as well. And the biggest problem is they're trying to navigate everything in college sports as is, because as we all know, back in, I think, around the 2010s, whatever that was, Ed O'Bannon, we know how this started at UCLA, got upset about a player using his likeness in the NCAA basketball game and seeing all of his jersey sales and seeing all of the merchandise being sold off in his name, and he wasn't getting a dime of it. That made him upset. And that was really the beginning and the genesis of all of this was that moment. And that moment recently has spurned, I believe it was in 2025, was where now these colleges are having to set it. I don't even know. I don't know if they're given $20 million to spend on a roster.
No, they're not given it. They're allowed it. So, like I said, this new ruling added a huge bill to all the major athletic departments across the country. So this new ruling added a $24 million bill. I think, or maybe it's 23 million. I think it was 23 million last year, 24 million this year. It goes up $1 million a year because Ross Bjork has, I finally got sick this winter and I'm just recovering from it. I haven't shaved or anything in days. I've been sitting around the house recovering. So excuse me if I get a little bit caught up. But yeah, Jay, it's where were we at? I'm sorry.
Oh, you were just addressing exactly the money situation. How colleges are allowed to spend 20 million or 21. I don't know, 20.5. Is that what it is? I don't know. I think it's at least 22 or 23 by this year. But Ross Bjork says that this graduated schedule they have moving forward is way too slow. It's way outdated. So even Ross Bjork is saying that this needs to be more robust. And I don't know what he means by that. I know that there's talks of collective bargaining and things like that, of a more full collective bargaining, more like, I think more like the professional unions have almost. It seems to be what Ross Bjork is pointing at, but because nobody has an answer, that's why they met, in Washington. And I thought, Jay, that, that this might have been somewhat of a, when I heard about it, I didn't know that it was mostly just for the cameras. I thought that it was actually going to be a meeting where, like there was some things discussed, but, nobody had really talked to anybody. That seemed to be pretty clear. Everybody just kind of came with their pre-planned, prepared statement. It had a lot of pomp and ceremony, with President Trump and with some of the college football greats. And it was great that Ohio State was represented there and a former coach with Urban Meyer. But, the substance of it was not anything, nothing was discussed nuts and bolts of potentially how to fix this. People just kind of gave their grievances with it. And it was like, Nick Saban was like, we need to create a system that was like the one where the players didn't get paid, except now they get paid something, where education is the main goal. And it's like, well, Nick, that's one of the most disappointed I've ever been in you, Nick, because that's not realistic. To think that somehow, for most college students, obviously education is still the main goal, but and even for maybe a decent amount of Division I football players. But when you're talking about those upper top 150 guys or so, which Alabama is always in the mix for, we'll even say the top 200 guys, which Alabama is always in the mix for, several of those guys, it's not going to be about school for those guys anymore. Those guys are able to make 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years, depending on what type of player they are, of salaries that would be the equivalent to what they would get for earning their college degree and entering the workforce at age 23, age 24. So with that being the case, just think that we're going to magically go back to where education is a more important part of big time college football. Like that, that's just not going to happen. Two things there in regards to Nick Saban. And some people have already touched on that a little bit in this chat. But number one, I find it interesting that Nick Saban, now retired, has the audacity to say things need to go back to normal. Easy for him to say when he's no longer in the thick of it, right? Number two, President Trump, whether he intentionally said this or not, I don't think so, because, you listen to Trump talk, I don't think he knows anything about sports, like anything at all, which is fine. You're the president of the United States, you're a businessman, you're multi-billionaire, you spent your time doing other things. That's fine. I get it. But I did find it absolutely hilarious, Michael, that he kind of called out Saban that when things started to change, he left because he probably was under the impression of, oh, yeah, you just don't like it. This is stupid. I'm out of here. When the fact of the matter is, it really did change the landscape of how Saban operated. Yeah. And because of that, like Saban really couldn't win anymore, or at least at the level that he needed to win anymore. And he knew that. And that is, I mean, I think we can kind of put it together that is why he left. He could no longer stack his rosters and oversign and get all of the 5 stars anymore.
No, Alabama went from probably the highest payroll in the country to now they're right there with everybody else. And I always said that Tuscaloosa, Alabama is not like a beautiful place to go and live. I mean, I've been there, several times. It's not like there's not a lot of college cities out there across the country that to me are quite a bit more appealing than Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But it became the hot place because they were winning. And interestingly enough, it's not, the SEC myth, mythical. I'm not saying it was a myth because they had a tremendous amount of success, but the mythical status the SEC has obtained was built primarily on Saban. Yes, Urban Meyer had a part in its early creation with 2 national championships in Florida, but from then on, it was primarily built by Saban. And why do I say that? Because he won, however many he won, I think 3 or 4. And then Kirby Smart won 2. I know totally in the playoff era, I think he won 3 or 4. Total, he won 7, Jay? Or 6?
Yeah, he won 7.
Counting LSU, 6 at Bama and 1 at LSU.
6 at Alabama. So hold on, I'll tell you. He won 2003. He won 2009, 11, 12, 15, 17, 20. Yeah, 7.
Yeah. And so, he had seven national championships, but the SEC was built on Saban because Kirby took Saban's model and went to a talent-rich state in Georgia. Well, the whole model breaks down because Saban's model was based on keeping kids for 3 to 5 years. And if you take that away, then what he did would not have been nearly as effective. And he knew that. And Kirby Smart is the proof of that. We've seen what's happened to the Georgia program and how they look now versus how they looked 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a significant drop. And that they built the same model. They had to build that depth and, have those guys, develop into their second and third and fourth years. And then, they had loaded teams that were loaded with depth, but they're not able to do that the way they used to. And so, but yeah, Jay, let's get back to the thing. So,
yeah, I would say, this meeting, if you're listening to it, it was kind of a boring meeting. It was mostly honestly, it was just a bunch of people complaining. And even President Trump said, okay, we just need to keep meeting because things are probably not going to happen. Some of the big highlights from this meeting were, I found it interesting, President Trump promised some kind of executive order within a week to stabilize the system, whatever the hell that means. Even though he expects it to face legal challenges, of course, because as we all know, I'm pretty sure it's now law that, the colleges are supposed to spend that.
Yeah,
it went through the courts and the legal system and Congress and everything. There's nothing to do with
executive order there. Executive order's not going to do anything. And what is the executive order even going to be?
I don't know. He said he was going to look at it and write it out and think it out real well. And I don't know. I guess
nobody even offered any suggestions.
None of the people in there are politicians, though, either.
And
do they even really know? I mean, they know the college side, but they know what the powers of the executive branch even are. And I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, did they? I don't know if any of them expected him to immediately write an executive order. I mean, I think it's possible they went there with the expectation that this would start the conversation, and maybe in 6 months or a year, of dialogue between those at that level and those at the political level, they might be able to come up with a viable solution. I mean, I don't think anybody expected him to just pick up his pen and just be like, yeah, we're just going to kind of throw it back to the way it used to be through executive order. And it'll probably get caught up in the courts. Well, it's going to get caught up in the courts. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's not even going to get any traction. Writing an executive order on this is going to do nothing. So I don't know what Trump is doing. I don't know if he really thinks that way, that he can just fix this by, just doing an executive order back to the way it used to be, like the laziest possible thing you could do. But I don't know. Apparently either he does or we're just watching some kind of theatrics. I don't know which.
Well, at the very least, it shows that he cares. I believe he cares. It's good, I don't know, optics to show that he cares about student athletes, because in this meeting, leaders from, I believe, the SEC, the Big Ten, some smaller conferences, warned that if, things don't change, women's sports and Olympic programs will lose their funding. Well, yeah, they are. They are going to lose their funding because they just don't have the money to, fund these other sports and then pay their football and basketball teams, which, in all reality, 98% of the programs outside of SEC baseball, they're the only programs that see a profit, right? Again, we've always pointed to that. Football and basketball are the only sports that provide any profit. You should focus on those sports. We were saying that before all of this. And now that is an actual reality. Now everyone's afraid that this is law. They're like, oh shit, we're going to lose our women's sports. And we're all for women, even though we want trans people to compete against women. And it's just absolute fucking chaos, Michael. Again, it is completely off the rails. There are no rules. No one knows what's going on. I don't even know what the NCAA even does anymore. I know that I actually don't know what the fuck they do. I just know that college football exists, college basketball exists, and other college sports exist. And that's honestly all I fucking know at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA, nobody really knows what it does at this point. It really, what Trump probably should do is look into dismantling the NCAA and returning all of the funds and budget that it requires to run that organization back to the respective universities, because it just serves no function anymore. All it does is get in kids' way. It has no teeth. It has no real rules. It has all kinds of loopholes that can be gotten around. That's why if these kids want a 6th and a 7th year of eligibility, they just sue the NCAA because they can hold it up in court and they can kind of do all these loopholes and pretty much kids just get to play. I mean, the NCAA doesn't seem to really have a whole lot of authority or power to do much of anything anymore. So I don't know what the point is. I think the whole thing needs to be restructured. I'm not saying go, anarchy and get rid of all government. I'm just saying I think the whole thing needs reworked and restructured. And whatever the role the NCAA plays, I mean, it may fade to, it may just go away. I mean, outside of college athletics, it's not needed. And for the most part, it's not needed. Or potentially you separate the major revenue generators such as football and basketball out, and they are now separate and they have their own guidelines and their own regulations and their own deal. Or maybe you leave basketball in because it works and you just separate football out, because that's the cleanest. Those biggest, 40, 50 schools, separate them out. And, you have your own rules and regulations over there, and the NCAA continues to regulate the rest of college athletics. But college football essentially has its own commissioner now, and the conference commissioners are essentially subject to him to some degree. They'd have to figure out what kind of power do the conference commissioners have versus the main commissioner, et cetera. They'd have to work all those things out. But it would be self-contained and the rules would have to be abided by because it would be self-regulated.
Well, isn't that what the Big Ten and the SEC are just trying to do? They're just trying to maybe combine into a super conference and self-regulate themselves and create their own rules. And that's it. I mean, that's just kind of where this is going, isn't it? With the super conferences.
Yes.
I mean, because the NCAA has ceased to exist and Pandora's box has been opened, when you talk about self-regulation, it's like either they combine into a super conference, which they are both super conferences at this point, in my opinion, but a like Super Saiyan 4 conference or beyond, like Super Saiyan God 4 conference. And with that, they have their own rules and regulations and basically like, hey, our national champion is now out of these conferences. And that's it. I mean, like that's the end and beginning, end of story, whatever. Yeah. And I don't know that there would be any pushback by that. I think like any voter or coaches poll, AP poll is all going to acknowledge it. Yeah, that is the fucking best team. And some team out of the MAC could rise up and be like, all right, let's play another postseason game. We'll pit our team against yours and lose 63-10. But
yeah, right.
It is what it is. But
right. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, I mean, if you want to be included, you got to join the Big Ten of the SEC. I mean, there's potentially room for Clemson. There's room for North Carolina. There's room for Duke.
How about NC State, man? How about NC State? Can we get some love for NC State?
I think there could be room for NC State in the SEC.
What about the Big Ten, man? Selfishly, I would like to go see Ohio State play in Raleigh.
I mean, it would be great, but I don't see it. I see the Big Ten trying to take UNC and Duke out of North Carolina. I think they would leave NC State, and I think the SEC would be wise to pick up NC State.
I mean, Raleigh is a big market.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that gets the SEC into North Carolina. So it expands their footprint up into a pretty talent-rich state. Of course, the Big Ten would have done the same thing, so they'd be fighting it out there. But it would be a smart move for the SEC. So yeah, I think there's a place for them in the big boy game. I just don't think it's in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I guess just to cap this discussion here. A lot of the focus was on, they wanted to stop the bidding wars by NIL and the high volume of players leaving teams through the transfer portal and this, that, and the other. The fact of the matter is this went through SCOTUS, man, and they voted 9-0 on this, by the way. And I know Trump was upset with them, but by the letter of the law, I think SCOTUS was actually correct here. It did violate antitrust laws, and the money should be in the hands of the student athlete. But here's where I have a problem with it. And if you're in college as a student athlete, by most of society, you're still looked at as like a kid, right? You go to college to not make money. You go to college to get the tools necessary to make money and then go off into the world and do as you will. Use that knowledge, use those skills to make money. Not profit off of what you do in school, right? Well, that's where the loophole came in, is like they were giving, building up these athletic departments revenue, and they were not getting any of that. But they were being selfish. I mean, it's what it came down to. They were being selfish, and they're like, I'm not getting any of that money. And yeah, by the letter of the law, they're correct. But you're also like, there was like kind of an understanding that you're not supposed to get this money anyway. You're supposed to go on later in life. And I don't know, man, that's what greed does. And these kids are just fucking pieces of shit, man. I don't know what else to say. Ed O'Bannon, I think those kids at Northwestern are kind of doing a similar thing. And once it got filed through that, district court in California with that freaking left-wing judge, like it was game over, man. And there's no stopping it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree, and we're not going to stop it now. So we got to figure out how to make something better going forward. And that was not accomplished in any way in this meeting here this weekend.
Yeah. So Michael, let's prepare our audience, right? Because we're about to go someplace.
Before we do that, Rage, let's get a couple of our comments real quick.
All right.
We got Anthony. He made several other comments, of which we're pretty much in agreement with.
Anthony, welcome to the show.
But if we had this system in 2002, then Maurice Clarett would have stayed with the Buckeyes for 3 full seasons. Absolutely. And, Terrell Pryor would not have been selling his gold pants for tattoos. And none of that would have happened under this system either. So, as an Ohio State fan, certainly this system, I like it better than the old, because we can't get busted for ridiculous things the way we did, multiple times. But the last time being, of course, Terrell Pryor and Tattoo Gate, which is just absurd by today's standards, that these kids had to even give away some of their, stuff that they had there from the university in order to get a tattoo. I mean, I don't know. You can debate whether getting a tattoo is the greatest thing or not, but they shouldn't have been having to do that. And they shouldn't have been so harshly punished and having their college careers ruined because of that. And so that's part of the really bad elements of the NCAA that I'm glad don't have any power and any teeth anymore.
Dude, it's crazy to think that was 16 years ago, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, I get 15 years ago, because we're in the spring of 26, and that was like, winter of 2010. And then like Terrell Pryor was kind of like going through it in like the spring of 2011. So yeah, man, just amazing how time has flown and so many things have changed. After that, man. Yeah, Ohio State, it sucked what happened to us there, but at the same time, it is what it is. So, Michael, I think we kind of already answered this question in a way, but I guess I'll ask you directly is, as the title says in our, header, but can President Trump save the NCAA? And in my opinion, Michael, it's a no. What would you say? Based on that meeting, I'm saying no. I don't think he has really much of a chance at all to really save the NCAA.
Yeah. So I apologize there, Jay. I don't think that the NCAA can be saved.
Right. Isn't it? Well, Trump said it. It's like kind of an insolvable problem.
Right.
It is a problem they are going to look at and do their best.
Yeah. So Duke taking it all regardless of the results, says Slippin' Skippy.
Well, they lost their best players, and their best big man got hurt. So I don't know. I don't know. They're Slippin' Skippy. It's going to be tough for them. I mean, they're the most talented team. But Florida is looking like a juggernaut, and they're the defending champs. And that's all I can really say about that. So, Michael, shall we get into really why we're here? Why we are here, should I say?
Let's do it.
So, the question is, we ask, can Trump save the NCAA? We both agree is no. The fact of the matter is, Michael, Trump says a lot of things. And he said a lot of things coming into the second term that he was going to make a real change with a lot of things, right? Trump in his first term, I believe, wanted to pull troops out, rebuild our nation. He did just that in his first term. I thought his first term was actually pretty awesome. He delivered on a lot of promises prior to COVID. And obviously COVID happened, and it's been a total whirlwind after that. And, but man, I'm telling you, Michael, with the situation in Iran, the situation with Doge, the situation with the Epstein files, a lot of things that Trump ran on in his, I guess in the 2024 election cycle to get reelected after, in my opinion, having the election stolen in 2020. He hasn't really delivered. So I guess, do we actually trust him to press forward and try and save the NCAA because of all of that? Or is, like you said, is he just kind of meeting with all of these figureheads because it makes him look good and look like a good Samaritan, looking out for, I guess, the common man or the littler man in this situation? Because, college sports is going to take a massive backseat to potential World War III type stuff, and rightfully so. But Michael, we are in a crisis, man, because you looking at the other night, the Texas primaries, we had Texas Democrats showing up to vote more than Republicans. They actually have a senator in Texas that could take one of the Texas senator seats. So That is really, really scary. And there is just no enthusiasm by the Republicans or the hardcore conservatives. So let's start there, Michael. Let's start with Trump's second term, because I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm going to leave the floor to you to kind of kickstart us, and I'm going to basically just be asking supplemental questions along the way. So I'll leave the floor to you to kind of like go forth with that.
Yeah. So, I think that everybody that voted for Trump obviously had big plans for this second term. And the second election to me seemed a little bit more revolutionary than the first, even, because he had been on the outside, and all of the lawsuits and all of the various things that he'd gone through for those 4 years. And I mean, just thing after thing after thing after thing. And, it's one of those situations that it just didn't, things so far haven't seemed to turn out, the way that we hoped. I don't know what has happened exactly, but I mean, this Trump administration has seemed a little bit odd, don't you think?
No, it's absolutely very odd, Michael, because I mean, let's be real. Like, we went in thinking that we were going to really get into the government and unleash Doge. And what happens? We learned, what is it, a couple months ago, that Doge ceased to exist? Like, it's no longer running, or at least that's what's being told to us. Who knows what's actually happening there? But I feel like we were doing a lot of good there with Elon Musk and like the people that he hired to go in and check out all of the government and see like what is it that you fucking do here? Are you just collecting a paycheck, or do you actually have a job? And not just that, getting into like hidden files and secret information and this, that, and the other. And obviously they must have hit like a steel wall somewhere, or were threatened by some unknown entity. I have no idea. As we all know, Trump was a man of peace through strength. No new wars, no like boots on the ground, no like missiles being fired into foreign countries. But what are we doing? We're attacking Iran as we speak right now. Why? I'll leave that to you as the why. But it's just like, I mean, like, what about like ICE and stuff, man? Like, I feel like Kristi Noem was just kind of screwed over just now. I thought Kristi Noem was actually doing quite a good job. I know a lot of people didn't like her rhetoric, but that doesn't mean she wasn't doing a good job. I just feel like they just kind of bent backwards for the left wing to just remove her. I don't like that at all, because like, the people being shot by ICE were in fact terrorists. And that's why she got in trouble for rhetoric like that, Michael. So I don't know, man. I guess you speak to, I know you have thoughts, and I'm going to leave the floor to you here, but why? My question is why? Why is Trump doing this with Iran? Let's start there. I know you have your thoughts. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly why he's doing this with Iran. I mean, I'll get into some ideas that I have, but I mean, if you go back and listen prior to the election, Trump's words, or actually it was JD Vance's words, that, Iran was not of a concern. Like, there was no reason for any type of, action on Iran. And so, that's changed. I don't feel like we were given an explanation why that was changed. I mean, even, back in the Bush administration, and I know it was a little different because it was an insurgency. And I guess, do we have boots on the ground there yet? Do you know?
No, I mean, but I don't think so. They haven't I think there are people already stationed on Iran, but I don't think we actually have like a onslaught of like people marching and like taking over Iran. No, but I think it's going to go to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope not, but right now we don't. So right now, all we can say is that we don't. Hopefully we will not. but they indicated that nothing was needed over there, and now we're engaged in a conflict, and it's seeming to be more and more of a conflict as time goes. That we are indeed pretty much at war in a sense with Iran, and we still haven't. I mean, I still haven't heard why.
Michael, I guess. What is it with Israel and all of this, man? Why are we at Israel? Why are we backing Israel? Why are we? I mean, like, this is the biggest problem is most people point to Israel. Why are we like Israel's? I don't know. Why are we their militia and not the other way around? Why are we taking orders from them essentially? Because you do hear Trump come out and say, if we didn't fire missiles, then Israel was going to. So why not just let Israel fight their own war, right? Like, why? What's going on there?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. And I mean, things increasingly, this administration seems to be tied to some type of agenda with Israel. I mean, and not they've always been our ally, and so I'm not like, I mean, that's great. We need an ally in the Middle East. But being an ally with the country and, kind of like going to war on their behalf, seemingly, that's two different things. And so, I mean, definitely there's been a long-standing conflict between Israel and Iraq. And so I guess President Trump felt that it was his role to partake in that conflict and, strike Iran, I'm sorry. And, it's not like Iran is a bunch of good guys in the government. I mean, it certainly is not. So, I mean, you can always make that case. The question is any real change going to take place over there? When we kind of do regime change, is anything really going to change? And so, I don't know. It didn't work in Iraq when we went in and did regime change. And I guess that's what we're trying to accomplish in Iran.
Is it possible that Trump, prior, to the 2024 election, and I've heard this by some podcasters, basically the 2024 run by him was more of an ego boost. He's like, well, I'm just going to sell out to Israel and the tech bros to basically get elected and take their funding just to become president. But when the time comes, I'm just going to be at their beck and call because they're the ones who put me here. Because I mean, it's just like, look at what he's doing, man. I mean, like, this is my question here is Trump is the richest president in the history of the United States, bar none. I don't even think the previous presidents combined can accumulate to his accumulated wealth, right? I think he is like that rich. He is a multi-billionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's if he can be influenced or bought out, then what hope do we have for anyone else? That's kind of where I'm like saddened by this and upset by all of this.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what his terms were in winning this, but I mean, it does seem that something has changed, and it seems that, I don't know what it means to be like bought out by Israel. I don't know what Israel could do to buy out the United States or to buy out. So, I mean, that's a hard concept for me to like wrap my mind around. But I will say this, it certainly seems that, the Trump administration has been very engaged in Israel's interest. And maybe, again, we don't know why that is. People can speculate why it is. But at the end of the day, we don't know exactly why that is. I mean, there could be other agreements and things behind closed doors that we don't know about. But, it is what it is. And so the Trump administration seems to me, Jay, to have veered, kind of more back towards the mean in the way that, you know, presidents have kind of traditionally operated in this country.
Kind of like a neocon, man. He's coming off like a neocon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's unfortunate, Michael, because it's like he was all for peace through strength, not going to start anything, and this, that, and the other. And that was what his first administration was all about. And we had peace from like 16 to 20. And then like Joe Biden gets in and they start to piss off Russia and this, that, and the other. And I want to make it very clear. Do I have a lot of problems with Trump? Yes, I do. Do I also understand he is better than the alternative? Yes, I do. Because, Michael, Democrats, as we know, will expand the Supreme Court. It's coming. They are going to open the borders. They're going to raise federal taxes. They're going to legalize more and more drugs. Heck, they wanted to have a nuclear war with Russia, and they are, in fact, fucking pedophiles, and they want to destroy our country. They hate our fucking country. Now, the Republicans, I actually think they like our country, but for the most part, they're not making the right decisions as constitutional conservatives. They are coming off as like neocons and like kind of like overprotective, like meticulous micromanagers almost. Because when I say micromanagers, Michael, you brought up the point to me, the AI surveillance and ties to JD Vance with your boy Peter Thiel and Palantir. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. You know, JD Vance has strong ties to Peter Thiel. And, you know, was there with PayPal. He was one of the founders. You know, Elon Musk was involved with him there. If I remember right, I think Elon made 175 million or 195 million or something out of PayPal. And he immediately invested that money into his next ventures. But yeah, so Thiel and Musk have a connection. And Thiel had JD Vance raise money for his venture, you know, for certain venture capitalist things. And so Vance has been connected to Thiel for many years. And it was widely kind of speculated and softly reported that Thiel was very influential in Vance becoming vice president. And that he, you know, said that he would support the Trump ticket because him and Trump had a strained relationship. And he said he would support the Trump ticket, you know, if Vance was put on the card. And so that was a big part of JD Vance coming on board to begin with. There was that Peter Thiel connection. But yeah, Palantir, you know, it's a company. I don't get too much in the weeds to it. You guys can Google it if you want. But it's a company that is going to have tremendous, powerful capabilities. And, you know, governments will be able to use this technology and it will enable, you know, essentially, you know, surveillance. It could be used for that. And so because of this capability, he, being Peter Thiel, has a strong suspicion that this is the type of technology that could enable the Antichrist. You know, I don't think that Peter Thiel professes to be a Christian. That's why this all gets so interesting to me. I don't think Peter Thiel professes to be a Christian, but yet he is interested enough in these apocalyptic Christian scriptures of Revelation and Daniel and a few places, Thessalonians. He's interested enough in those scriptures that he's developed this his understanding of the Antichrist. And something about this really fascinates him because he not too long ago did a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist. So I guess it was like a couple of hours a piece or something. And, you know, I listened to a podcast one time where he spoke on his thoughts on the Antichrist. It was like an hour and 10 or 15 minute podcast. And he really struggled to summarize his thoughts on it in that amount of time. You know, he wanted far more time. So this is something that's kind of a passion of his, which that's very odd. It's a very odd thing to be passionate about. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are I find that kind of scary / interesting. The little bit of Palantir I've done digging into, Michael, essentially they are going to be a one-stop shop for everything data, information, and surveillance. So Any camera system that is on any street or corner, they will have access to. They have facial recognition. They are going to have basically any information rather than it be separate. Like you have the DMV and the police database for like, separate databases versus like, pictures for, like a street corners, and then information on like who's in what household and how many people live there with like the census and everything. All of that information is going to be combined through, companies like they're going to buy information from like LexisNexis and I don't know, another data collection company, and all of those like, people search websites online that I highly suggest you remove yourselves from. Hint, hint, everyone listening. They're going to have access to all of that. So basically, they're just going to know everything about you. They're going to know everything about you. And it's a very scary thing. And they have, they're probably listening to this show right now. They probably know we've mentioned them. And who knows if this episode gets taken down or not? Who the fuck knows? But be that as it may, it's very scary stuff. Palantir, they could be benevolent. They could be benevolent. They could be malevolent. I don't know. All I know is like that kind of level of AI to have, basically a monopoly over like all of data, information, crime records and stuff is kind of scary. And that's exactly what they are. And Michael, I find it interesting that it was created in 2003 off of the intelligence failures of 9/11 and has CIA backing.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, they're involved in everything. So, a lot of these big companies were started by the CIA. When I say started, they identified the technology, they identified the talent. These were real people that started the companies. They had the idea, but before it ever took place, it was funded by the CIA. Google is one of those. And so might not should have said that actually, but yeah. So there are plenty of things that are the CIA is on the front end of and had a hand in. Now, that's not to say they're not real companies. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the CIA values the technology. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything nefarious beyond that. I mean, the government is allowed to invest in private business. But what I'm saying is it shows you if the CIA values the technology, then there's always plenty of things that they always have technology far beyond what we have been made aware of. That much we know.
I have always been told by our good friend producer Jeff, if we ever actually knew the depths of like the government and what it does and the CIA, and the world would absolutely collapse.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I wonder how many people are actually privy to that information, really all of it. And how are they not crazy, or are they just evil, or I don't know. I don't actually know, man.
So, Jay, before we get off here, Slip and Skippy is optimistic about JD Vance. He is I guess we can say he's a Vance supporter. He thinks he's going to be the next president. All right, good. I mean, hey, I'm not against JD Vance. I'm not an anti-Vance guy. I just his connections concern me a little bit that he might have, that he might be, pretty controlled by certain special interests.
Well, I kind of brought up Ron DeSantis to you, but then you said he even was kind of compromised a little bit. So,
yeah, the truth of it is what guy, for the most part, is going to get into office that doesn't have some kind of ties to certain special interests?
Yeah,
that's just the way it is these days.
Your special interest should be to the United States and the people and being a constitutional republic. That should be your fucking special interest.
But that's being idealistic for today's day and age in politics. We just have to understand that that's just what they do. There's going to be special interests.
Michael, I have a loaded question now. But has this AI surveillance, do you think, been expanded in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death? Like, do you think like that has been expanded? there, because as we all know, the stuff around this man's death is very suspicious, my friend. Very suspicious in the way the crime scene was handled, and no caution tape, just nothing. Like, people are taking the cameras. It just, everything about that just seemed very eerie and odd. But they're using it to fund your boys at what is that, Turning Point USA. And I don't know, man, like, that entire situation is just, that is some scary stuff if you start looking into that.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, there's all kinds of rabbit trails that you could go down with that story, because there's so many things that either flat out don't make sense or just like a real big, like, really? You know, I mean, it's like when you have like one or two of those, it's like, okay, but when you have like 10 or 15 different things and you're like, really?
Yeah.
You know, like nobody cares really that much that Charlie's gone. Like, everybody's just pretty happy about it around, TPUSA, including his wife. I mean, those kind of things are odd. Like you can't just keep dismissing them, when they're right there kind of in your face. So yeah, I mean, there was definitely some weird things that took place through the Charlie Kirk, assassination and rally there at the end, the Republican rally, that was his funeral, I suppose, or his memorial.
I don't know what that was, man. The entire thing was kind of odd, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And it's like things have seemingly begin to kind of shift since then.
Shift how?
To me, it seems like more away from his mandate that he was elected to.
And, I do find Erica Kirk's response to all of this. Again, I understand everyone handles grief differently. But when she's getting excited about the funding and the money for Turning Point USA and like doubling their money and stuff, like live on camera, and is that a little odd after your husband was just shot dead on live TV? Like, I mean, like, what? Who does that, right? I mean, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, she was very happy about all the merch that had been sold and all the donations that had come in. I mean, she was pleased. I don't know. I mean, I guess some people would say, well, she's a very strong woman. Maybe so. Maybe that is the case. But
we didn't really know anything about her. We didn't. I mean, she really wasn't a name until after he died.
Right.
That's the crazy thing is, okay, if she was some prominent figure before his death, okay.
No.
Oh, why are we hearing it now? That's the kind of suspicious part, right?
Right.
And exactly. It's like her reactions to everything, and it just doesn't seem to add up. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just this administration. So let me just put it this way to answer the question. I don't think we can trust Trump to save the NCAA, because we can't trust Trump to back the things he said he was going to do in the 2024 election. Yeah, he has done some good, but it's all been essentially like half measures on the good he has done. And it's been colossal fucking failures everywhere else. Like, we are facing an economic disaster with this like Iran attack, by the way.
I mean, I hate to say it, but we are, potentially headed for a George W. Bush 2.0 with a Middle East, war going on, and the potential collapse of the economy. When I say collapse, well, hopefully to God not a collapse, but at least maybe a significant correction, recession. I think I think that's a possible scenario. Hopefully it would not be as bad as, as things set in there at the end of Bush and the Great Recession of 2008 and 9. I think that we're definitely probably headed for a dip at some point. I think it's probably overdue, and I hope the fact that it's overdue, it doesn't make up for by being deep and long. But we'll find out. Time will tell, and hopefully, best case scenario is that doesn't happen at all. I mean, I would love for us to be able to avoid a recession. But Jay, I mean, most of the times you look back through history, like they're not avoidable. They happen every so many years. And we've, kind of gone a lot of years never really having that correction. And a lot of people, I think, are starting to feel it now. I think people are strapped for cash. The numbers show that. The debt is up. All those are signs that financially things are constricting and getting tighter. And so, if the hope was, I think most people probably saw this as a possibility. Most people most of the economists would have said this was a possibility if certain things took place. But I think the hope is that maybe Trump would be able to outgrow it. We just really haven't kind of seen that type of growth under Trump this time. His agenda hasn't seemed to really be boots on the ground, like getting jobs at all.
The cycle continues, essentially, is what it is. Yeah. But I mean, you kind of said it yourself. It's like a recession every so many years, and Trump was supposed to be like the end of that. And it looked like he was the end of that until COVID came around, and then the 2020 election and all of that stuff. And I don't know, man. I feel like I have like another like just crazy question, but I don't really know how to ask it or really how to understand it. Should I shoot literally and ask?
Yeah, try.
Why try and kill Trump? Why? If he has been bought out and he's doing the bidding of Israel and the big tech bros, why try and kill him in Butler, Pennsylvania? Or was that just completely staged to set up all of this? I don't know. I mean, was it an actual assassination attempt, or was that a fixed assassination attempt to start all of this? I mean, I don't know, man. It's mind blowing, right? Like literally.
All I can do is assume that,
because what do we really know about that shooter in Butler, Pennsylvania? His entire room was scrubbed. There is nothing on him. What was even his fucking name? I think we were given a name.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty. I mean, he was some kind of patsy. I don't know.
Oh yeah, he was.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, who knows? I'll tell you this. It's gotten to the place that I don't feel like I trust my eyes anymore. I don't just definitively take things that I see. I mean, AI is becoming, so good. And I'm sure we don't even know what it's capable of. I'm sure there's higher levels to it than what we have access to. So I don't always, I just I try to go with my gut, as crazy as that sounds. Like more than ever, like I'm trying to go with my gut on how I feel about things. I'm not trusting necessarily what I see and what I hear, because it can be deceptive, I think. But, my feeling is just that for whatever reason, and I don't think we know, I'm not claiming to know that reason, but for some reason, it does seem like this second administration, to me, we're starting to see it kind of slide away from that MAGA movement. And it seems that MAGA movement is starting to lose enthusiasm from what I have seen in polling, Jay.
The first 6 months were amazing, by the way. First 6 months were absolutely amazing. It looked like it was going to be the greatest presidential term in the history of our, I mean, not the history, maybe like third best. Yeah. But in the modern era, if you want to, maybe even better than Reagan. And it's not going to be even as good as his first term.
Well, I guess we can just be hopeful that maybe he'll end strong. He's probably going to lose the majority.
He's going to lose both the House and the Senate. So then what then?
Yeah. So, I mean, then can he strike up any kind of good legislation with the Democrats? Probably not. Trump's probably not going to be able to do that.
No, they hate him too much.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, Jay, you got anything else tonight?
No, I don't, man. Just depressing times. Because of all of that, it's like it kind of just makes you wonder, like, why even exist?
Yeah.
Why? Because
Yeah.
you thought you had your guy to completely like break the wheel, and it's just a never-ending process, and things are never going to change, and things are only going to get worse. And you thought the Democrats were bad in 2020, and then under Obama, and just wait until fucking 2028, man. Just wait.
Yeah.
Or should I even say 2026 for that matter?
Yeah, 2026. Yeah, probably going to be a blue wave, but who knows? The mood may change between now and then, but certainly the Republicans and Trump need a little momentum, and I don't think this NCAA thing is going to be that for them.
No, it's not. And like you said, it was more just for the cameras.
Yep.
Pretty much. I mean, I listened to that entire conference. Nothing substantial came from that. They understood that there was a problem, and they didn't have any answers. And Trump even said, like, I could make an executive order or something, and nothing would really come of it. It'd just be sued to all hell. So I don't know, man.
Yep.
I don't know. So
all right, let's get out of here, man.
Conference championships this week. Enjoy a lot of basketball. You're going to have more basketball this week than any other time in the season. So,
all right, take it easy. Thank you guys for watching.